Like I said, of all the different topics that I do, this is by far the best one because of all the things. When I got into ham radio, this was the one thing where I was like, I can do this. I can build this. I can't build a radio, you know, I can't build a cable. I can't build this, but I can build an antenna and I can make it work and I can tune it and I can see my own work and how it comes out. And so this is one of my favorite topics. And so we're going to deep dive into this. But first, real quick, before we get too far into this, or right after this screen, I'm sorry, let's do this first. We're going to talk about 5 basic kinds of antennas that you can build. Dipoles, which are probably the easiest ones to build. We're going to hit those. I'm going to show you some really easy ways to make them with stuff that I bet you already have. Then we're going to do ground plane antennas, same thing there. We're going to show you some really cool antennas that you can do. And then a wire antenna. I'm going to show you how you can be out in the woods with a little piece of coax with a plug on the end and a baofeng, and you can build something that you can crawl up in a tree and just hang in a tree, a piece of wire. Really something simple. This is a survival technique that we all should have in ham radio, is to be able to create an antenna basically out of garbage and stick it up in a tree. And of course, then we're going to get into the real antennas, as I call them, the manly man antennas. But truthfully, I love Yagis. Yagis are the best. I'm going to tell you what, when you put a Yagi antenna up and you point it in the right direction, you are going to be amazed. So I'm going to show you how to build a Yagi for under $25. Okay, so and we're going to do that tonight. I'm going to show you right here. And then I'm going to show you some other weird antennas that are kind of cheap. And then I'm going to show you some weird stuff that's been loaded up as antennas over the years. So it's really cool. We're going to go just a deep dive through antennas with a heavy emphasis on UHF and VHF. And when I say that, we're going to have a double emphasis on the 220 band, because I want you to understand everything we're going to talk about tonight is good for 220. It's good for 440. It's good for 2 meter. So any of those 3.
6 meters too.
Anything we build tonight, you could measure out for 6 meters, 10 meters. You get to the point where it's probably going to be too big for the kind of antenna we're building, but you could literally build a 80-meter Yagi if you could figure out a way to do it.
I always wanted to do a 160-meter J-pole, but you'd have to have FAA approval.
Yeah, you'd have to have a red light on top. But yeah, I mean, so we're gonna talk about some different things. But I want you guys to understand what brought this about this week. I always like to tell you guys what is it that made me choose this topic this week. I spoke to 3 different people this week, okay, that told me that they have bought a 220 radio and they're having a hard time getting into the 220 repeater. And I want to start by saying they're outside the 10-mile radii. So it's not that there's anything wrong with the 220. The 220 is a strong machine, great antenna, good location. The problem is just we got people out in Buckingham and people out in Estero and people up in Charlotte County that aren't able to get it. So I'm going to show you tonight how for $25 you can build an antenna that you can stick on a tripod. And then when it's time for this, you go stick it on the roof of your car and aim it towards Fort Myers. And you can talk on the 220 net with your baofeng. It's just some easy stuff. So we're going to go through that. Then later on, believe it or not, it's arrived. FT8 dark mode. I was like, I was shocked. Excuse me. Sinuses. I was shocked, absolutely shocked that FT8 had a dark mode now. And then I found out apparently it's had it for a little while and I was just ignorant. But it doesn't matter either way, because I'm going to clear this whole ignorance thing up tonight and show you guys how to make your FT8 dark mode. Let me tell you what, if you thought you liked WSJTX before, you're going to love dark mode. Dark mode is like, I don't know, it's like day mode FT8, but sexier. All right, and then we're going to go into ham radio news. Got all kinds of weird, cool news. There's another little SSTV, 2-day SSTV ISS deal coming up. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about the tropics. Quiet right now, but we're going to go in depth into that and look at some SST, some surface water temperatures and things like that. And we're going to talk about space weather. We've got a clear disk today, but we've got something coming around the limbs. So we're going to talk about that too. And so all that coming up. But before we get into all that, I want to make a few mentions. Gary, SWF. I don't know if he's in tonight, but I just wanted to say thanks to him, and I'll mention this a few times. He donated 3 computers over last weekend to the club, to the TechNet and to the Tech Club, and one of them is an amazing machine. It's a huge server that was when it was built was an amazing beast of a machine. And so even though it's a little older now, I've been running 2 things at once on it. And it's been doing great. We've already got SDR Sharp on it. We've already got FT8 running on it. We've got a bunch of stuff running on it, and it's doing great. So we've got a couple of other ones. We got one slower one that I think we're going to put. What are we going to put on that, Joseph? Unix or Linux?
Yeah, Linux.
Yeah, let's put Linux on there. I bet it'll run Linux a lot faster than it's running Windows.
Certainly.
Windows is kind of like always having a boat anchor hanging out of your window. Now you can get if you can get a really fast car, and it'll still go pretty fast, but there's always that boat anchor hanging out your window. That's Windows.
Yeah. It's like pouring sugar in the gas tank.
I like Windows. I have a love-hate with Windows bigger than the world. Okay, I love Windows. I hate Windows. I love Windows. I hate Windows. I want Dan. Does anybody know Dan's call sign? The Dan that goes to Lunch Bunch, visually impaired, is a friend, and I can't remember his call sign, but you guys know who he is. He donated.
ACB.
Yeah, KD7ACB. Thank you. Dan donated 3 computers a while back to the club, to the team, and I just wanted to mention that one of his computers was running SARnet the day that it was the #1 scanner in the world. So that was pretty cool. And also another one of his computers is running an SDR Sharp program with a scanner program that Joseph wrote in there that has it's scanning 3 different bands, and it's scanning all the repeaters on 3 different bands minus the ones we've got covered on the other 2 machines. So it's pretty cool. And that's all on Broadcastify. So those computers have all been put to good work. And also Stephen, our EM coordinator, W9GPI, donated 3 old XP machines months ago to me. And one of those is up and running and has been up and running. And I just want to make one honorable mention. This XP machine has now been running for almost 1 full month without being restarted. Which is probably a Windows record.
I'm sure
But it's XP, that's why. All right. So thanks, guys. Thanks. All right. The next thing, and if you guys have anything you want to donate, computers, radios, looking for old HF rigs. I don't care if the knobs broke off the front, as long as I can get it on an FT8 frequency and hook it up to a Raspberry Pi. That's all I want to do with it. So I'm looking for old, broken, but still transmit and receive HF machines. I'm also looking for old HF machines that don't transmit but still receive. We have a couple of projects coming up we're wanting to use those for. So anything like that, just let me know. And then if you donate, I keep you on the list so that when we put things in service, the remote FT8 is going to be the first big thing that's going to go in service before long. But as things go in service, you will get access to it as a donor. Okay, whether you're a team member or not. If you're a donor, I will give you access to the cool stuff that we're doing. Okay, next thing up, Ham Radio Toolkit. This is the best app in the whole world. There's probably others that are just as good. I'm probably biased. But the truth is, this is the one I use. I like it. The green doesn't match the motif for tonight, but I wanted to leave it in the native color. That way you could find it easier when you go to Google. Go to Google Play. It's probably in the Apple Store, but it's probably like $50. But it's free for Android users like me. I know that they have it for other platforms. I'm not sure what else, but it's called Ham Radio Toolkit, and you download this into your phone. It's a small little app, and you can see what it looks like there. And you just press what kind of antenna you want to build. You put in the megahertz. You set the little things here on the right. You have to set those for inches, or unless you like working with millimeters or some foreign measurement. Um, I have a bad taste in my mouth for metrics ever since they tried to force that to me on the fifth grade. And can you guys remember that? Were you in school when they did that? They're trying to force the metrics on me, and I'm like,
Oh,
boo
yeah.
hiss.
Yeah.
Um, it's actually a much better system, but I refuse. Anyway, so there you go. I'm an illogical jerk. Um, but anyway, you got to change these little things here on the side to inches or whatever measurement you want to use. Um, and then you just put your frequency in up there and it will tell you how to build your antenna. This is so easy to use, and it's great because it's not, you put it in your phone, so that way when you're building your antenna you can lay it right there. I also have it in my tablet, and I actually have Velcro, and I stick my tablet right above the workbench, and it's got all my measurements, and it just sits there on my tablet the whole time I'm building the antenna, because I have zero memory, especially short term.
Ian,
So
it looks like on the Windows side it's called Amateur Radio Toolkit.
okay.
On the Apple side, yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just if you don't find this one, there's other ones. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but it's just I use this one and I know this one works good. There is about 10 of the buttons that will not light up unless you pay them a nominal fee. I have not needed anything that's behind those gray buttons yet, so I still haven't paid for it. But I will probably one day give the man my $3 or whatever, because it is a really good app. All right, any questions on that? Any comments? All right, antennas, man, I'll tell you what. There is so many cool ways you can build antennas and things you can build. And when I was going through different things to do this, I was absolutely amazed at all of the different ingenuity that's been going into the resonance of power over the years. It's just an amazing thing. And there's about three or four of these on here that are set up for that reception of those satellites, Joseph. I'm sure you can probably see that. That one with the acrylic on the lower right, I think that's one. And right in the center, that's one. And I think that half moon looking thing there, lower left, I think that might be one. That one to the left there of that one's made with 2 coat hangers and 2 bolts and a piece of plumbing pipe. That's cool. We're going to go through a lot of these tonight, so don't worry about that screen right now. PVC is your friend. One of the things I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to try to convince you guys that you don't have to be Tim, the tool man, to build one of these. I'm not industrious. I'm a retired firefighter. Okay. I work in broadcasting. I can't solder worth a crap. But you don't need to be good with your hands or good at building things or even industrious at all to make antennas. I'm going to show you a way tonight to make an antenna with no solder and no drill. And it's a Yagi. It's called a tape measure Yagi, and you can make it with hose clamps or tape in place of the solder and drilling holes and things like that. So there's even for people that don't want to solder and drill holes, we're going to have antennas you can build tonight. Some really cool stuff. PVC's your friend. Let me tell you something. My dad was a plumber. My dad built everything out of PVC. My mother still has about 7 or 8 things in her house that are made out of PVC. She's like, I just can't get rid of this stuff. Your dad built it. But I mean, he used to build everything out of PVC. PVC is amazing. It's inexpensive. Even though wood has doubled, PVC has only gone up by a much lesser degree. It's getting more expensive, but not near to the rate other different hardware is. It comes in many sizes, thicknesses, and shapes, and they're all locally available. It's very lightweight, it's durable, and it's strong. You can get it in like a thicker if you need to use it as a mast. You can also buy one that fits tightly inside of another one and make you a mast that's literally like a piece of steel. They're available at all your local hardware stores. They're not it's not necessary to glue. In most cases, you don't even have to do anything, or you might want to put a little set screw in, but you don't have to glue. I've never glued one of mine because I take them all apart and reuse my parts. I have parts that have been used on 4 or 5 different antennas. So you don't have to glue them, and you can reuse your parts over and over and over. No fancy tools. I just took a bunch of Yagis that I had and turned it into a 10 element 440 Yagi that I built this last weekend. It's up there now shooting towards Verna, trying to get the NI4CE, and it's doing pretty good. No fancy tools are needed. All you need is a hacksaw. You can also buy a fancy PVC cutter too. They're pretty cool, but they only work up to about 1.5 inches, or 1.25 inches, or something like that. Once you get over that, you have to use a hacksaw. But this is something you can do. You can also, if all you need to do is make 3 cuts, if you go ask the guy at Home Depot, he'll probably cut it for you. Those guys are pretty good about that, and they'll just charge you for the 1 stick. They'll even do that with a sheet of wood. They'll make a cut or 2 for you. Anyway, it's a non-conductive material. Let me tell you what, I honestly believe no matter what calculation you make, or no matter how you try to figure out the math or whatever, antennas work better when the boom and the mast are both non-conductive. You just seem to get this amazing resonance with it, and you don't have as flaky an SWR. When I build these ones out of PVC, and the only metal on it is the metal that I put the pieces that are actually the antenna, I have an easy, SWR is easy. I rarely have to put any loops or anything on it. I've got Yagis right now that I'm using up there that don't even have hairpin turns on them. And I'm 1 to 1.2, 1.3. So when you don't have any conductive boom or a conductive mast, I really believe that makes your SWRing easier. That's a personal opinion. Okay, so we got to connect the radio to this contraption that we're going to build, okay? And this is how I started out. I actually bought a couple of these things that you see right here. I bought that lower one, and I bought the upper one. I bought that lower one. It's all that is. It's like a 16-foot extension cable, right? All I did was cut it in half and make 2 antennas out of it. And they both, each one, have a plug that hooks into my radios. So you could take this. I would buy the longer one. I'd buy that 50-footer right there. It's got the ends on it, and they'll go right into your radio. You want to make sure that it's the right ends. If that one has one of each, so you just want to buy a little adapter for $3 to go on there. I started with that $17 coil right there for 50 foot. And what I did, I bought that, and I went to the middle of it and I cut it in half. You should see the look on my wife's face when I pull a brand new wire out of a package and cut it in half. It's like, what are you doing? I'm like, look, honey, there's 2 wires now. It's a bargain. So anyway, by doing that, I was now able to cut the end on both ends, in the middle where I cut the middle. I now frayed off both of those and made 2 antennas. I made one to go with one and one to go with the other. And so this is just, I'm just showing you an easy way to hook your Baofeng up to the creation that I'm hoping to motivate you to create tonight. Here's some other ways you can hook it up. You can hook up your larger antenna wire right to the top of your Baofeng. I don't recommend it. But I'll also tell you these little wires here are crap. And if you tug on them all the time, they won't last long. It's one of those things. These little wires are fine if you're going to hook it up, if you're putting it in a go box for going out and practicing or the real deal. But if you get to the point where you're using these every day to join the Sunshine Net, which by the way, I haven't been on in a little while, but it's still my favorite net. When if you're going to do it every day to join a net, it's going to wear out in about 3 weeks. I'm telling you, these things are like, they're like test equipment almost. So you might want to go back to something a little more like this, that's a little more durable, and you don't need a bunch of adapters. Remember, every time you add an adapter to an antenna cable, you have loss. And sometimes that loss is more than you think, especially if all your pieces and parts came from China. I've got almost all at China antenna wire, and some of it's really good, and some of it's garbage. I'm just being honest. All right, let's do dipoles. Dipoles, probably the most common kind of antenna out there, I think. It really is the most common. It's also called the doublet, which is something you hear a little more, I think, more of an English term. Dipoles are really, really simple. You've got an antenna that goes up and an antenna that goes down. And I don't mean to make this too simple, but that's it right there. Everybody, one of the biggest misconceptions in radio is that there has to be some piece of magic between the back of the radio and the radiating part of the antenna. And the truth is, there is no magic. It literally, the wire goes down, hooks to the two elements, and it's done. There's no magic. If you need magic, you get the magic by wrapping the cord around the thing like that. That's where you get the little extra ooh that you need to get that SWR down. You can also add a hairpin turn on the Yagis, and we're going to show you that later. But there's things you can do to get the, see how it says Balin 5 to 6 turns? That's a good idea to do that. And that will help you with your SWR, but not always necessary if you build a really good antenna and you're tuning. A quick word of advice: when you're cutting an antenna, always cut it long. Always cut it long, and then tune it down to where you want to be. If the thing says it needs to be 50 inches up and 50 inches down, cut it to 52 inches.
A lot easier to cut it off than it is to add it.
It is, and then throw it on your tuner.
An antenna stretcher?
Yeah, there you go. That's what I need. You know what's funny? With copper and stuff, you can actually stretch it, and I've done it before. But yeah, you don't want to have to deal with stretching and things like that. And I actually had an antenna for a while. You're gonna laugh. I cut it too short, and so it had an alligator clamp on the top that made it half an inch longer, and it was perfect. So I don't know what kind of lobe it was putting out with that alligator clamp on top, but anyway, so anyway, you can do it all different ways. But your dipoles, there's some neat construction here. I want you to notice the one on the far right, all plumbing parts. That's all plumbing parts. That's actually a T, like an 1.25 inch T, and then he's got a reducer down to a thread, and then the thread goes into the copper pipe. It's the threaded copper goes into that, and then that goes into a sweat fitting, and you can see that right there. You can build that antenna, the one on the right there. You've got your pigtail, and you've literally got about $20 worth of parts there, and that's a great little dipole. The one there in the middle, the spines on that, the radiating elements on that can be anything. They can be a coat hanger. Although I will tell you,
Brazing rod does a nice job. You can get that at Harbor Freight.
I've actually used brazing rods for 2 different antennas. Somebody gave me a roll of aluminum stock.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the straps you see on chain link fence, but it was one long roll of it. That turned out to be the best material I ever had for building antennas. But anyway, that thing you see there in the middle, that's an old DirecTV mount on someone's roof.
Yeah.
And then a piece of PVC, and he's got the wire running up inside the pipe so that there's no weather on it's protected from the weather. But that's how he's got that set up.
Well,
so these are really
as much as DirecTV, that's for sure.
Yeah, there you go. And it will work when it's raining. And this one here,
that's novel.
this is just another easy dipole. This one's a dual band. This one has a 440 elements on it as well. You can actually build these. You can fan these out. You can make it for 220, 440, 2 meter. It's a little squirrely to tune, but it does work. But this is just an idea. This is literally, this guy just built this thing out of what he had laying around. These connections right here, all you need is a nut and a bolt and a couple of washers. Nothing fancy. And you just put the wire, you take the wire and you measure how much you need for the 440 side, and then you bend it around the screw, and the other side becomes your 2 meter side. And then you just screw your screw down, and then you cut your links to where you need them. That's how I make it. It's literally one piece of wire that bends around the screw. One half the wire's to 440, the other half's to 2 meter. And that's how I've made all of mine. And then you just want to get the right spacing. You want the right amount of spacing out. This looks almost a little close right there, but anyway. But that's all there is to a fan dipole. Now, do you need a little one? You could just make the 440 antenna, or you could just make the 220. I made this one right here with a piece of PVC pipe, but I made 220 440, and I've got it hooked up to my Baofeng on the 775 and the 220 repeater. And so I built an antenna for my purpose. All right, this shows you, this is a little fancier. This guy found some pieces and put a little bit of a fancier connection on there. That's also pretty cool. The wiring's down inside, and then he brings it out for the coil and then back in again. This is a little fancy, but a great setup there. And he can also do, once he cuts it, he can do a little bit of tuning there. Notice that? He would be able to do a little tuning there as well, because the gap in between is not as important as the tuning length. But it does become important if you get too much or not enough gap in here. All right, so that shows you that. That's basically the dipole. Now, a lot of you guys have this sitting around. This is an interesting thing. You could take this little kit that comes with your SDR Sharp, the one I told you 3 weeks ago not to buy. If you did buy this kit and it's sitting around your house somewhere, the little rabbit ears, take the box apart. Take the little rabbit ear box apart and see which side is connected to the positive leg of the antenna connector. And then mark that side and put it back together. Then turn it around like the right picture, and that becomes your dipole. Now, just push the antenna in or out, top and bottom, to length for the frequency that you want to talk on. And now you have a tunable dipole antenna. So that's kind of ingenious. Any pair of rabbit ears can be, and all you got to do is find continuity between your positive leg on your wire, and so you know which one is the positive, because you obviously want the center conductor to go to the upright antenna. If you figure any pair of rabbit ears can become a tunable dipole antenna, I caution you not to use more than 5 watts with something like that. Ground plane antennas. Before we go on, does anybody have anything on dipoles? Anything at all? Any questions, comments, concerns?
I've never actually built a dipole.
I don't build them too much anymore because I always go for the bigger stuff now. But yeah, anyway. Okay, so there's nothing else on that. Dipoles are they're pretty straight up. So are ground plane antennas. A ground plane antenna, it just basically means that you've got one upright and then you've got a grounding plane or a counterpoise underneath it. And most everybody already knows what these are. So I just want to run through some of the things you can build, some of the things you can do with these kind of antennas. Here's some examples. Lower left, that's a tri-band dipole, or a tri-band ground plane. Oh my God. The second one over is a dual band ground plane, and then the third one is a little quarter wave ground plane antenna for the aviation band for receiving the aviation signals, which in the next months, there's several things I want to do. And one of the things is build a little antenna like this and hook it up to an SDR Sharp and receive the plane telemetry. That's kind of cool. And then on the top there, on the upper left, you see that's like a dual. He's got two different ones up there. And then that next one, that's I don't know what band that is. It looks a little small for 440, but it might be 440. I don't know. It looks pretty small. It might be higher than that. It might be up in the
Maybe
microwave.
900.
Yeah, it could be. Again, any of these antennas can be sized as long as the structure works. They can be sized for whatever band you want to use them on. That third one, that's simply just a UHF plug, a surface mount plug like you would buy to replace the one on the back of your radio. And then you hook up 4 wires to it using little bolts, and you solder one wire to the center conductor, and boom, you've got an antenna. That's all there is to it. That's how they build that. That's all there is. This might probably be the easiest one to build. If you wanted to just think, okay, what's the easiest one to build? Go to Home Depot, buy you 5 or 6 feet of copper wire. The guy will pull it off the roll for you. It'll cost next to nothing. And buy and get you this little UHF plug coming from Amazon for $3. And there's your first antenna. And buy a box of little bolts that'll fit through those holes. So you got the nut and the bolt that fits through the hole. And then you're down to just soldering the middle piece on. That's the hardest part. I don't know if there's
usually really easy to do on those case mounts because you can just put the center conductor right in. There's like a little hole usually. It's really easy to do.
Yeah, in some cases, your wire will fit almost snug down in there, and you just put a drop of solder on there, and you're done. It's really not that hard. In some cases, you might be able to just stick it on there and crimp it if you don't have a solder. I mean, you may be able to do that. But it's always best to solder when you can. All right, so but those are all different ones of those. But this is one of the easiest antennas to build out there, and you can build it real easy. And for 220, you can build this for 220. It's only going to be it's like 10 or 12 inches tall.
13 inches.
13 inches tall.
Yeah, about
and each of your legs will be 13 inches. So you're talking about something pretty small, something that you could literally on this night put on the end of a broomstick and just walk outside and stick it in your yard for 30 minutes while the buck and a quarter net's on.
Yeah.
And then just go grab it and bring it back in. If you're in one of those condo Gustavo places. All right. And of course, you can't talk about ground plane without talking about the old cookie sheet trick. This is what I do when I go on vacation. I got like 3 mag mount antennas. And when I get up to my cabin, I take like my mom's got like 5 cookie sheets up there. I go and grab 2 cookie sheets out and put 2 antennas on cookie sheets. That's like the first thing I do. I gotta hear these repeaters. It works pretty good. You could use a metal garbage can. I will tell you, if you use a mag mount or a vehicle mount style antenna and you stick it on your wood banister, you're going to wonder why it don't work worth a crap and why it gets no SWR at all, or why it's a wild SWR. The reason is because there's no counterpoise. They require the vehicle to be the counterpoise. So if there's no vehicle, you have to provide that counterpoise some other way. And you can do it with a garbage can or a cookie sheet or in the upper right-hand corner there at the top of a car. I don't know why all these pictures are like snowy pictures, but they're the ones I found. Wire antennas. All right, before we go on, is any question about any of this stuff, any of the ground plane stuff?
I wonder if I have a bit of a question for the people here. With the magnetic mount, like just a car mag mount antenna, how does it, let's see, if you have a cookie sheet that's not magnetic, but is made out of like aluminum, for example, would that work? Or would I've heard conflicting reports that the actual magnetic coupling is what makes it work as a ground plane. So does it have to be magnetic in order to work, or can it just be metal, like conductive?
I'll throw that out to everybody. I'm not sure. I will tell you, it's my understanding that if it makes a connection to the negative, to the shielded wire, the negative wire, it should work. Um, I'm not sure about the magnet thing though. Does anybody have anything on that? Anything?
If I understood the question, that came up a day or two ago on the Sunshine Net. Apparently, we had a rain, and one of the people were saying that they could hardly get the old goat's net, and then after it quit raining, that they could had more. It was worked better than it did before the rain came. And FHP Dave explained it was because the ground was wet. But we
Yeah.
talked after the net, and I said, well, what makes it effective? Because he had said something about adding salt to water. And I said, is it conductivity? And he said, yes. So the more conductive it is, I take it, the better it's going to be.
Mhm. That is an interesting point. And you know something, Vivian? In the morning, or I'll go to bed at night at 11 or 12 o'clock sometimes. I'm working weird hours, so I'm up all down. But let's say I go to bed at 11 o'clock. I'm SWR'd out on 40 meters on FT8, and I shut it down and I go to bed. When I get up in the morning at 6 or 7 in the morning, there's dew on the grass, there's dew in the trees, there's dew on my roof of my house, there's dew on everything. When I come out here, my SWR is different. I literally have to get on the knobs and retune back in again to get my low S, because I'm a bit picky about my SWR, and I'm surprised that I'll be at 1 to 2.3 or something, and I can get it back down to 1 to 1.4, but I just have to work it back down again. And I'm pretty sure that must be the grass and the dew on the grass. But it's hard to tell because about the time that dew burns off the grass, I'm usually heading up to 20 or something anyway. So, but I think that's the same thing. Is the ground plane it changes the SWR of the antenna for good or bad when it's wet. Anybody else have anything on that? I just know I can tell you this: the counterpoise is just as important as the antenna. If you don't have one, the other's not going to perform. So, and I know that when I do my ground plane with my mag mount up at the cabin, I've got one that I actually have a spot where I put a alligator clip on it, and I put the alligator clip on the pan, and that way I make sure that it's grounding, that it's an actual ground plane. See, when you put it on your vehicle and you stick it on the roof, your radio's grounded. So technically, the vehicle is already grounded to the shielding on your wire. Does that make sense? Because the shielding of your wire is grounded to the box on your radio, which is grounded to the vehicle. So
Yes,
technically, the
but you
ground
don't
plane's
want your only
established through
ground.
that.
You don't want your only ground being through the coax.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm just saying that would be why on a vehicle it might work better if you stick it on a cookie sheet. There's no actual physical connection between the metal on the antenna and the metal of the cookie sheet because of the rubber or the sticker or whatever they got on the bottom of it. So I don't know. This is a good question. This is good stuff. Because I'm not sure. It's one of those things. Anybody have anything on that? All right, there you go. Try to ground that cookie sheet. All right, wire antennas. I don't really have any pictures or much to say about this, but I'm going to tell you this. You can take anything and make an antenna out of it. You can take literally a piece of wire that's the length you need, cut it in the middle, connect one half to one side of your antenna connection and one side to the other, and put 2 wire nuts on it. And then take the positive side and hang it in a tree and let the negative side hang down. And you're on. So all I'm trying to show you guys is you literally don't need an antenna. You literally just need 2 wires that are separate from each other on the end of a coax cable. It can be anything. I've seen people take cookie sheets and drill holes in it and make separators out of those and do things with that. This after all, this right here This is a wire antenna for HF. That's how it's made, pretty much. It's just an isolator that everything hooks into. So just to show you guys, you could do almost anything with just a wire. And this is something you do when you're out camping one day and you want to have a little project. You know, bring a little piece of wire and just build a wire antenna that you hang up in a tree. That's not actually a physical antenna at all, but just two pieces of wire. One that, you know, that's just hanging down. All right, now let's get into the Una-Yagi antennas. These are my favorites, of course. This gives you directional. The directional gives you everything. This increases your gain. It increases not only what you hear, but it increases your ability to send out. And so that, that becomes very important when when you're, you know, you're on the fringe of that repeater and you really want to get into that $1.25 net, or you're in a stereo and you want to get on the traffic net, or you're in North Fort Myers and you want to get on the newbie net.
Or if you're in Fort Myers and you want to get into the Miami repeater.
That's right. Or if you're in North Fort Myers and you want to get into the NI4CE big stick system in Tampa, and I need to get to Verna, which is 62 miles away. Yagi's how you do it. I've got a vertical up 35, 40 feet out here, and it works wonderfully. But the truth is, it doesn't have the performance of a Yagi that's 10 feet lower than that. Yagis just give you so much more. And you can build these. They are not so complicated to build. And there's always that question of why do we call it the Yagi when Uda is actually the guy that made it? Yagi was his assistant. Just for the record, I just want to put that out there. So thanks, Uda and Yagi. All right, there's a simple one. This is called the yardstick Yagi, or the tape measure Yagi. This is a big one here. This is 2 meter 440. This is one he uses for fox hunting. And he can also do satellites with this. You can do space station flyovers because it's got the cross polarization and the dual bands. There's a lot of things you can do with this. It's a neat little setup he's got here. And building this thing is cheap and it's easy. That's one stick of plumbing, 3 crosses, and we're literally talking probably $12, $14 in PVC. And most of us have an old tape measure laying around that we can just gut out. There's nothing to this. And then there's the little pigtail that you hook your radio up to, however you're going to do that. That's all there is to this thing. He uses black clamps. You can use hose clamps. You can use tape. You can use whatever you want to hold your elements on. All right, and we're going to look at some different ones here. Here's a basic parts list. This is for the one. This is if you don't drill and you don't want to screw things in and you don't want to do this. You want to do something you can do without much skill at all. This one's pretty good because you can use clamps. See those clamps? Those are called radiator clamps. There's probably a better name for them, but I don't know what it is.
Hose clamps.
Hose clamps, yes. Those make it to where you don't need to drill any holes. You don't need to thread anything or anything. You just you put those on and you run the thing underneath it and you clamp them both down. You can even do, as you see there, that's the driven element. The wire comes up, positive, negative, and it's soldered on there. You don't have to solder it. You can literally put the wire, you would sand the paint off of the measuring tape. It's got a coating on it that protects the steel underneath. You have to use sandpaper or some way and scrape off or burn off even the coating so you can get down to bare metal. And then you can literally stick the wire between the hose clamp and the piece of steel and clamp it down, and it will work. Is it better to put a little piece of solder on there? Sure. But this will certainly work by just sticking the wire under the hose clamp, between the hose clamp and the piece of tape measure. And that's all there is to it. So you can make you a 3-element Yagi by simply buying 6 hose clamps, 3 crosses, and 1 stick of pipe, and a piece of coax and a tube of silicone. The silicone's optional if you're going to leave it outside. If you're going to leave this outside, you need to paint it, do whatever you need to do to protect anything that you expose. Anywhere you sand or burn or anything like that is going to rust up pretty quick. All right. Anybody have any questions on this? There's a couple guys that have real good videos on YouTube on how to build this, and he will show you this. These are the plans. Really easy stuff. You can see the red things are hose clamps. The yellow is the yardstick. The black things on the end are simply just a piece of black tape, because when you cut this tape measure, it's going to have like little razor blades on the corners of it. You need to put, you'll have to put a little tape on there, or you'll be all cut up. It'll look like you just got out of the jungle. And then the blue thing right here, that's going to be if you need a hairpin turn. And you can see that right here. A hairpin turn is nothing but just a piece of metal, a piece of wire that literally grounds out your positive and your negative connections there. And that's it. I know that seems crazy. Matter of fact, it seems ludicrous to me, but it works. I can have no hairpin turn on there, and I can get an SWR, and I can go put a hairpin turn on it and actually get a better SWR.
It's done
I
mostly
like
for matching the impedance, though, right?
Yeah, it does. It does change the impedance quite a bit. You can also change both the SWR and the impedance by also in conjunction with this, wrapping the wire around the pole or whatever you're using to create the balun. But that's how you do that. Again, this is just a stick of pipe. These little cross pieces, 1, 2, and a T. I guess that's T on the end. So 2 cross pieces and a T. These pieces, that you just pull that out of an old tape measure and cut it. And there's everything you need right there. The hairpin turn, simply a little piece of copper wire. It can have coating on it or not. It doesn't matter, as long as the ends are clean that you obviously that you make the connection with. That's it. That's all it is to building a Yagi. Now, there's other ways to build it too. You don't have to use a tape measure. If you want something slightly more permanent, something that's going to last out in the weather a little better, I designed this after I built 3 or 4 of these tape measure Yagis. I decided, well, here's a couple more pictures of some tape measure Yagis real quick. There's a dual band cross polarized. It gives you an idea here. This is a 4 element. That's your reflector, driven element, and 2 directors. And then he's just got the tape measure pieces laid out underneath. Over here, you can see the, he didn't use hose clamps. He used tape. And I had this all over here. And I built my second one I built, and I'll show you guys this. Let me take it off the screen capture here. This is actually the first one that I built. And it's basically the same thing. You can see where I sanded off the coating, and it rusted right up, of course. But I used big washers, and I used wing nuts. And I literally, the wire comes up. I put my hairpin turn on. The wire comes up. Wire goes up underneath the 2 bolts, and I clamp it down. I don't use solder with this. It's solderless. Instead of the hose clamps, I just put a threaded screw with a washer, zip, 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 and that's how I did all those. So I didn't have to buy those expensive hose clamps. Those hose clamps are like $2 or $3 a piece. This was a lot cheaper, to just literally screw it in. And I think I put a washer up under here, a small washer, to keep it from kinking this. You see what I mean? But there's so many different ways to build this, and all it is these cross pieces, a T piece here for the end. You want to leave the one end open so that you can put a pole or however you're going to hold this thing. And I'm going to show you pictures of this later, back when I had it mounted up there. I used this for the longest time. This was actually my sunshine net antenna. And every morning, this was up there facing towards Punta Gorda, and that's how I got the sunshine net on the 70 centimeter side. So that was like the second or third antenna I built, and I just absolutely love that antenna. Before we go any further, anything on the tape measure Yagi? Anything else? Okay, the next one you may choose to build is like the one I built here. I've got a pair of double Yagis. Oh, one more. Sorry, this was the third one I built. This is obviously a 7-element 440 Yagi. I was using this for DMR until I realized that there was literally nobody on DMR. But and I sent it back. Thank God Amazon gives you your money back 28 days later. But anyway, there you go. This thing right here is made out of an old piece of 4x4 scrap wood that I found in my scrap wood pile. Bunch of pieces off of a tape measure. The end over here is just like what I saw there, just 2 screws with the wires going under the screws. That thing gives me so much gain. If I told you it's garbage, it's literally built out of garbage. Didn't cost me a thing. Garbage. This is how I built my other ones. Instead of using tape measure, I used aluminum stock. You can also use copper wire, same thing. Aluminum stock, copper wire, basically the same kind of thing. It's just a piece of wire, basically, with no coating on it. And you can see here, this is a 440 rig I was building. There's my reflector, my driven elements. And you can see how I put the driven elements in. They go in like that. And your wire comes in and goes underneath there. Again, this can be soldered or solderless. You can put little horseshoe connectors on the end of your wires and stick them right down in there and screw it down. Where solder gives you an advantage is with weather. If you're going to put this outside, you're going to have to silicone it really good where all your connections are. And if they were soldered, that would help as well, because that solder, it's a lot harder for weather to get between solder joints than it is for weather to get between pressure joints that are just under a bolt or whatever. So you just got to keep that in mind. But this one is basically just the way I built mine. And I put little caps on the end to make it fancy. And notice I put set screws. I don't glue my pipes. I put set screws. Trust me, water will never run through my pipes again. There, I put set screws because I'll take this apart. I took this Yagi apart the other day and made a longer one out of it. So every day I'm reimagining. And on the program, this is what it looks like. You put in the frequency, you set these for inches, and you just build it. It shows you all the measurements you need. It's so awesome. And there's what mine looks like when it's up. And it's up right now, except I have the 440 array off the top. This is what it looked like at first, the one on the far right. That's what it looked like when I first put it up and was testing it out. These are just pieces of rope right here, just to keep it from sagging. That's all. Keeps everything together as well. And these are both 7-element Yagis that are hooked to identical length wires, and they're both hooked up at the same time, and they're one wave apart. And I did that so that I could get more distance and more gain, and it works really good. It's giving me about half as much gain again as I would get with just one. Same thing with the UHF. The problem I had with the UHF Yagi up on top is the weather got right into all my connections. 440 is unforgiving. If you look at it wrong, weather got in it. Just look at it. Weather's in it. Just look at it. I don't know what it is. 2 meter can rust up and it'll still work. 440 is just unforgiving. So if you have the 2 meter works, but the 440 doesn't, you're probably starting to have oxidation problems with your antenna, and you'll find that the 440 goes out before the 2 meter does with that kind of stuff. But anyway, there's my rig, and that's on my rotor up there, and I spin that around. What you don't see right now is I have my 6 meter up there too right now. My 6 meters hanging about halfway up this pole right here. It's right there. So I got 3 stacks. All right. Other options. I found a couple of other ones. I wanted to show you this. This is when I started. This was a year ago. This was my first builds. I started out with the one on the right. That was my first antenna. I built that because and that's a piece of Cablevision wire coming down, and actually works pretty good. I hooked this up so that I could talk on the nets inside the shack. This worked great. Got me on. Then I took that same antenna, made it taller, and I put the Yagi on this side shooting towards the WX4E in Punta Gorda. And on the back side, notice there's my dipole on the back side for all of the Lee County repeaters. Then I went over here and I built, this is my own design. That's a block of wood. That's a quarter wave antenna. That's just literally a piece. It's a piece I cut off of a larger antenna that I put a loop on the bottom, and it's sticking up. These were more pieces off of that long yard tape that I took apart to to build those other yardstick Yagis. This is more yardstick or tape measure, 4 tape measure. And then down here, you can see on the side, there's that dipole again. So with that rig there, sitting on one of my old camera tripods, sitting on top of my shed. And that little rig right there did really good. I can get on pretty much all the Lee County and all the Charlotte County repeaters with that tripod rig right there. So, so that's kind of how I started out. Those were my first 3 rigs. Here's some cool stuff. Build yourself a tactenna.
What?
Yeah. First time I saw that, I'm like, if I built that, I'd have to cook steaks on it.
Yeah.
Because that would
be very difficult to get those measurements perfect every time.
Yeah, I every time I see this, I want to build it, and then I talk myself out of it. The one on the right there is a magnetic loop antenna. Now, you're probably used to seeing the lower band magnetic loop antennas, but this is a homemade one you can build for 2 meter or whatever you want to size it for. So just some other options. You'll need to look this stuff up. I haven't built either one of these. Or if I built that one, I cooked steaks on it. I don't remember. But anyway, it's a funny story. We used to cook hot dogs at fire scenes by putting the hot dog on the 800 megahertz antenna and keying over to a simplex talk channel and keying up for 2 minutes. It would cook a hot dog perfectly. It's amazing what 7 watts at 860 megahertz will do. Or 35 watts. I'm sorry, 35 watts. That was the first generation system. I bet you they're not using 1 watt now. All right, so go mobile and go big. I encourage you guys all to go out and take your wife's car and do this right now.
I've seen 2 of those pictures before. The one on the bottom left, and then the one in the middle on the top with the massive amount of radios.
The one on the bottom left
looks like a Soviet embassy on wheels.
Yeah, the one on the bottom left, there's some interesting things about that picture that I want you to note that you might not see. On the hood, he's got all his trophies.
What is
There's literally 10 blue trophies on the hood. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's also a blue, a green, and a yellow strobe light on the roof, too, if you can find those.
Yeah, he's got an orange one, too.
I don't know. I guess we didn't need a red one, but probably in his country, that's the only color to get you in trouble. I don't know, but I don't even know what that thing is on the trunk. I'm not sure, but it could be a flux capacitor, and it could be part of the time machine system. I'm not sure.
Screwdriver antenna.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
They
even
got-
know what all that is. Yeah, but so the upper left, those are contesters, man. Those guys are serious. That's not BS. Those are real ones up on the left. I mean, these are all real ones, but that lower left one, I think that's kind of a gag.
Yeah.
But um, that next one over on the bottom, that poor van. I bet it
Oh,
used to be a
man.
TV van. You could tell. And then there's some other cool ones there. That third one over that's on the Lexus, that's his wife's Lexus. You know it is. The neat thing about that, it mounts onto the hitch, and there's probably not a hole drilled in that thing. Kind of a neat system, really.
That's incredible.
The one to the far right, another system that goes onto the Reese hitch receiver. Neat little setup.
What is that? Is
Yeah.
that like a discone or something? It looks almost like a discone. I don't know what that is.
It does look like kind of like a disc cone, but the bottom half's upside down. It's got to be some kind of HF deal with that big old coil on it like that.
Inverted umbrella antenna.
Yeah,
The one
80
that
meter
fell
mobile,
over looked
baby.
like a porcupine.
Anyway, I just thought you guys would find some of this kind of funny. I was like, yeah. I showed my wife. I said, this is kind of what I'm looking at, and she gave me that look like I'm leaving.
Flip you a bird.
Yeah. How about this? The strangest things ever been loaded up and used as an antenna. This guy on the left, he used he's a Palestinian ham radio operator, and he recently participated in an annual Strange Antenna Challenge on Memorial Day weekend, and he created an antenna out of a Palestinian National Guard armored tank, and actually loaded up the tank and used the tank as his antenna. Probably the heaviest antenna ever was, except maybe that one in Russia I showed you 3 weeks ago. The top
like
barbed wire on a cow pasture fence, if you think about it, that would work. It's not really isolated too well on those wooden poles, but it is a non-conductor. We all know how that is. In circa 1959, a 2-mile distance, 2 ham stations actually held a QSO that was 5'9", both ways, using an antenna that was actually made out of cooked spaghetti noodles that was tied at the end. Laid it on a piece of newspaper in the driveway and connected it to his rig with a length of RG58 and some alligator clips. And then he tuned it up. So when they say you can actually tune up that band with a wet noodle, they proved it. At field day in the mid-'70s, 2 Volvo 245 station wagons were parked back to back and loaded up as a thick dipole. It involved the use of the towing hooks as connectors and jump start cables as feed lines. The arrangement worked reasonably well on 7 megahertz. The whole 3rd floor railing of my apartment building complex, I use it in the early AM. He uses it in the early AM because if he used it any later, he'd start burning the hands of his neighbors. Chain link fence.
TVs.
Yeah. Chain link fence and a metal garbage can. Or how about a lawn chair? You can work all kinds of FT8 with a lawn chair. A metal window screen, a steel highway bridge. Yeah. A steel highway bridge crossing a river, a rain gutter. I spoke to a guy this weekend who's got his rain gutter hooked up and it works. And of course, a flagpole or a light pole. So just some interesting stuff there. There's some
Not just
neat...
that. Don't forget the aluminum step ladder.
Yes. Yeah. If you could isolate the 2 flies of a step ladder, it would make a great dipole.
Make sure you use
All
ladder
right.
line.
All right, so that's the poor man's antenna. Does anybody have anything else on that before we move on to the next topic? I hope that I've inspired you guys maybe tonight to take a look around the shack or around your house or around the garage this weekend and build something. Don't be a user, be a builder. It's much more fun. And the neat thing about building antennas is, number one, you're not going to hurt anything. We're talking about you're hooking it to a 5-watt Bofang. Worst case scenario, you buy another 5-watt Bofang. Second, as long as you're close on the residence, it won't hurt that portable radio. I'm telling you guys. You do not have to have a one-to-one, and you guys correct me if you think I'm wrong, but HTs routinely use portables that have SWRs of 3-to-1, use antennas at 3-to-1. So if you're worried about making something for your Belfang on 220, but you have no way of tuning it, number one, you can call one of us and we'll stop by with a tuner. That's the easiest way. Number two, if you're a member of FMARC, you can borrow, check out the tuner for 2 weeks between swap shops. I fell in love with my MFJ tuner. I don't even know where it is. I fell in love with my MFJ tuner because I borrowed the FMARC MFJ tuner, and I had a 2-week love affair, brought it back, went and bought one. It's probably the coolest thing since peanut butter. Joseph has the Nano VNA. A bunch of people have that. That works great. It's a little bit of a curve, but once you learn that one works. If you can't tune it and you don't know anybody that can help you tune it, call me. I'll find somebody. If you still can't find nobody, or you still don't want to do that or whatever, I'm telling you, as long as you make it right, you make it per spec that you find online, and you cut it close, it'll work on a portable and it's not going to mess your radio up. Anybody have anything to add to that?
Oh, by the way, I want to show you something here. I found it on the National Hurricane Center radio station WX4NHC. It's a, let me set up the share
You can
here.
share. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's why I love Zoom.
Oh, yeah. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the typical, you take a piece of twin lead and you make, and it shows the dimensions for 220, 146, and 440, and even 810. This is the typical J-pole made out of TV antenna flat lead. So it includes 220. So that's why I brought it along tonight. I figured y'all want to see that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'll get a screen capture of that and put it on the share page.
Yeah, you can do that. Or you can get it off WX4NHC, which is the Hurricane Center website. Look under the emergency antenna; it'd be on there too.
All right. Yeah, because I could just I'll drag that right onto the page for everybody.
Yeah, this is something we can almost put in the modulator.
And I did fail to mention the J-pole tonight. The J-pole would probably be another one that's fairly easy to build. And
Yeah.
I probably neglected to mention that tonight. I should have mentioned the J-pole.
But you could do a whole night on J-poles.
Yeah. J-poles are cool. One of the few basic antennas that I haven't messed with yet. I've messed with it. There's one at the swap shop that I'm always picking up and looking at. Some old one some guy built, and it works great. But I've never actually built one. But they're real easy to build too. It's literally just some pieces of copper.